Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 2A News with Craig DeLuz. I am your host, Craig DeLuz, and we are once again here at the NRA 2026 annual meeting and exhibits, talking with folks who are involved in the Second Amendment, talking with folks who are into guns, talking with old friends, talking with new friends. And with me right now, we have, he's not old, but he's been an old friend for a while. I've known him for quite a while since I first got active in the Second Amendment. He writes for Bearing Arms, along with a number of other publications. Dude is very, very well known, writes on a number of issues. And it's my pleasure to have him here today with us, and that would be my good friend, Mr. John Petralino.
Craig, thank you so much for having me today. It's a real pleasure to be with you.
God. He's being nice now. Normally he's a real smartass. So just know that it's okay to be a smartass.
Should we get it out of the way early that I'm from New Jersey?
Yeah, well, it's kind of synonymous, right? It's like genetic there.
Yeah.
It's genetic to be a smartass there. Anyway, so tell us a little bit. First of all, you do a lot. You write a lot. Tell us all the stuff that you do within the Second Amendment community.
So first and foremost, I guess we'll say I'm a journalist that covers the Second Amendment. I try to focus on hard news reporting on topics, but that's not to say that I don't do any opinion writing or op-eds and stuff like that. So since I've started writing on the 2A, I now hold the byline, like you said, at Bearing Arms. So there's Bearing Arms and AmmoLand. I've done some writing for The Truth About Guns, Shooting News Weekly, USA Carry, News 2A. That's a great publication that y'all should check out, News 2A. And then I also do some work for Concealed Carry magazine when they'll have me. And that's kind of the editorial side and the stuff that I cover. I also have a book out called Decoding Firearms. Its subtitle is an easy-to-read guide on general gun safety and use, and 101 level book on using firearms. It's 266 pages, so it's nothing to kind of laugh at. 115 original diagrams and photographs in there, available on Amazon. And then I'm also a board member on the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. So I serve on their board. And CCR-KBA is a 501c4 advocacy group. You may be more familiar with our organization that we're affiliated with, the Second Amendment Foundation. Second Amendment Foundation is a 501c3, and we're kind of the 501c4 answer to the work that they do. Alan Gottlieb's our chairman, and just like Alan Gottlieb is also the founder of both organizations.
So I got to be honest, the Citizens Committee on the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, I can never remember that acronym. It's almost as bad as the LGBTQIA plus minus divided by sign.
CCR-KBA. It took me a while to figure it out myself.
I think I just don't say it often enough to memorize it.
Yeah, well, I'm there now.
You're there now.
Exactly.
Good stuff. What got you involved in the Second Amendment? I mean, especially being from New Jersey.
So, I don't want to say that I grew up with firearms, but I was exposed to them early on in life. Whether I was shooting BB guns at Cub Scouts or getting involved in hunting with my dad. But it was early on. I was exposed to healthy, shooting sports activities. And then from there, it kind of just blossomed. And as I became an adult, I took it a little bit more seriously. I got involved in, purchasing handguns, and then I said, well, we got to get some training. And then, like the bear trying to run down the hill, quickly, and this was very naive of me, I'll be very honest. I said, well, in New Jersey, you have to get a pistol purchaser permit for each and every handgun that you want. So when I said I wanted to go and get a handgun, I said, you know what? I'm going to get two. So I got two permits, and you could buy one gun a month. So I bought one gun, and then I waited a month or two and bought a second gun. I said, well, this is perfect. I'm going to get a Beretta 92 FS, semi-automatic handgun, and I'm going to get a Smith & Wesson 357 revolvers, 686 stainless steel revolvers. I'm good to go. I don't need anything else after that. I got all the handguns I'll ever need. And much like a Pringle, once you pop, you just can't stop. So
I know nothing about that.
Right. So just like the training, and you start to learn and do, and then you start to purchase and do, and it became something that was past time and a light hobby to now in the same kind of scenario you are, where this is just now a way of life, and the lines are very blurred between work and pleasure and work. And like you, I also have a separate profession as well. Doing other things. But the Second Amendment, journalism and advocacy is definitely a huge part of my life.
So, what's it like being an activist and a journalist, particularly on the Second Amendment, in a state like I'm at, where you're basically behind enemy lines?
Yeah. And New Jersey is really, really interesting, and there's a lot going on. And last time you and I talked, we talked about New Jersey, and
Yes.
I coined the phrase on your show, and I've repeated it many, many times since. It said, the Supreme Court said that the peasants shall have their pitchforks. And, I was like, hey, that's pretty good. And I've repeated it several times since. And now that the peasants can have their pitchforks, here we are now, we're in the sequel of everything that's going on. So when you and I spoke at SHOT Show in 2023 about these things, I had just gotten a permit to carry issued like that week, and actually I needed to get it changed. They got my birth date wrong on it, so I had to send it back. They screwed that up, and they got me a new permit to carry. So now here we are years later, and what do we have since then? We had the Bruin response laws, so they came after us. They've got sensitive locations, they've got insurance mandates, all these things. Some of it's enjoined, some of it's not enjoined. It's an absolute nightmare.
By the way, is it just me, or was that just like was that just the states giving a flipping the bird to the Supreme Court?
Well, they're having a hissy fit, right? And they're definitely acting in a less than what I would say mature fashion, right? So what have we gotten since then? We've got over 100,000 permits to carry that have been issued and approved in New Jersey. Now, that doesn't mean that we have 100,000 permit to carry holders. We have about somewhere between 60 to 70,000 current permits. Well, why is that? Well, that's because the permit's only good for 2 years, and then we have an attrition rate. So we've had a bunch of people that fell off that probably are not renewing their permits to carry. But how do I know this information? Very interesting thing happened. In 2023, the then Attorney General Matthew Platkin, put out a directive that forced the local jurisdictions and the state police barracks to aggregate all their carry permit data. And he was going to collect it, send it to the state police, and they were going to put it in a dashboard where you can get all of these analytics about permit to carry holders, permits issued, et cetera, et cetera. Fast forward to 2024, that dashboard went live.
Okay.
And when I started digging into the dashboard, one of the things that was noticeably absent, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know if it was absent or I just couldn't find it, but there was people that were far smarter than me that also couldn't find this information, was on race. So who are and are not getting issued permits to carry by race? So I put it in open public.
And by the way, that's a pretty big deal, because in center right, in center states and in purple states and in blue states, they're very particular. They want to know, are people being discriminated against? So getting the race of people who are doing things is a very big deal. And the fact that that wasn't there means something.
I think it may mean something. And these states want to get it right down to the exact tone, color of somebody's skin. Like, they're that particular. So I put in this records request, and what got returned to me from the Attorney General's office was instructions on how to access the data. Was the data there? I don't know, but me and a bunch of smart people smarter than me, I should say, couldn't find it. When I started digging into the data, what I found was a couple of things. Number one, the majority of permit denials were under a subjective standard. So we still have a subjective standard in New Jersey, and it's the will not issue a permit to carry or firearms ID card or purchaser's permit if it's not in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare, or they lack the correct temperament to own, carry, or possess a firearm. So it's a subjective standard based on whatever. And I had a guy I was covering, he got a permit to carry denial based on a bad driving record. This isn't a criminal act.
No.
It wasn't criminal speeding, it wasn't a criminal driving record either, it was just a bad driving record. So there's a lot of challenges out there. So when I started really digging into the information, I found that black applicants were getting denied more than double whites.
And I'm sure the NAACP was very upset about that and angry about that, huh?
They responded to my email, but they didn't follow up.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So we've discovered this now, and this is all under that subjective standard. So you have black people getting denied more than twice white people for permits to carry under a subjective standard. The Attorney General has been completely silent about it. Now, this is going back to 2024, Craig. I mean, I've been chasing this beat for a while. My coverage on this got picked up by a nonprofit bias watchdog group called Rise Against Hate. Rise Against Hate said, we're going to look at this. And they did their own independent study. And then they got like statisticians involved, stuff that I don't have access to. I mean, I'm doing napkin math here. I remembered, carry the one and all that stuff from school. When they did their independent study, Rise Against Hate found across the entire state of New Jersey, black people aren't getting denied double whites. They're getting denied more than 10 times.
Wow. That's huge.
Subjective standard. We're not talking about, the black community has more criminal element. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a subjective standard. We're talking about people that have already been issued firearms identification permits, people that have already been issued permits to purchase, and presumably people that have already passed a NICS check to buy a handgun. Because if you're going to carry a handgun, you probably bought one.
Right.
And you went through all of those background checks. You went through all of those permitting processes. And now you're going to deny them a permit to carry under the same exact standards that they said was okay.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a big deal, definitely going on right now in New Jersey. What I started digging into in 2025, mid-2025, towards the end of 2025, was I want to know about retired police officers. So the permitting dashboard's got a wealth of information, which I don't know why they put the permit dashboard out, to be honest with you, because it's not serving New Jersey in any manner, but it's serving us.
Right.
So not included in that are retired police officers. They have their own special permit. And right in there, it says they're excluded from this data. So I said, well, let me go and see if I can get information on retired police officers. I want to know the exact state of health of these permits in New Jersey overall, holistically. So I put in 2 Open Public Records Act requests. One, and that's a FOIA, basically, so you know, that's the New Jersey answer to a FOIA. One to the Attorney General, one to the state police. The Attorney General got back to me and said, hey, I see that you put it in for the state police. We're denying your request because it's supposed to be with the state police, so good luck to you. So, okay. State police sends me an email, says we need an extension on time. I said, okay, cool. I'm thinking this is a very promising thing that they're giving me an extension on time. All I'm asking for at this juncture is the number. I'm not asking anything else. I just want to do some baseline data. Well, they denied my records request. They said it was improper, overbroad, and that I'm looking for information, not for records. Like, there's no record of that. Further, they said that this information is precluded from the Open Public Records Act request. Okay. So you're not allowed to Oprah this information, which doesn't make sense because we're not looking for specifics on, say, an applicant.
Right.
Okay, so they denied my request. So then, well, what's the next best thing I could do? I needed record, right? So I'm asking them to return to me the record of how much money was collected by the state for retired police officer permits. Okay. Because it's a record.
Right.
And they have to have it as a line item somewhere.
Right.
Right? They denied that request. They said it was improper and overbroad. So maybe they caught on to me saying that I was going to use this weird voodoo. And it was this magical idea. I had this plan, Craig. I was going to take the amount of money that they collected and divide it by the cost of the permit to come up with the number. Number of permits.
That's some high-level Einstein-type math right there.
So I think the New Jersey State Police got maybe a little bit, turned on to that and knew what I was up to.
Right.
So they denied that request. They said, okay, now we're going to go full in. I'm going full Monty. You know what I want? I want every single application for the last 2 years from every single cop for the retired police officer permits. You can take out their names, take out their addresses, take out their date of births. All I want is their sex, their race, their jurisdiction, and some other, information that's statistically relevant. Same exact information that's out there on civilians.
Right.
I don't want an individual record, but You're forcing me to ask for the
Right.
records, so I want the records every single application.
Right.
If you don't want to give me those applications, I even stipulated, give me a tabulated chart with the data where I can break it down. They denied that request. They said it was improper, it was overbroad, and that this isn't covered under Oprah. So now this is the third time that they're denying me on just this topic alone. And I'll say historically, the New Jersey State Police has fulfilled absolutely zero records requests that I put in all the years that I've been doing this. The Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General didn't really have a lot of love for me, I can tell you that much. Even they fulfilled plenty of my requests. Even they would return correspondence with, we declined to comment. You know, there's a little bit of professional courtesy there. New Jersey State Police, for whatever reason, does not want to let any information out at all. So I said, let me go to the records custodian. So I send an email to the records custodian and I say, hey, I'm interested in this information. You keep denying my records requests. We're already now clear into 2026, that this is went from 2025 to 2026 and I'm chasing this story. I said, I want these records. I'm a journalist. There's nothing weird here. I'm not trying to do anything nefarious. I'm trying to report on this. And really, Craig, at the end of the day, what am I after? I want to see if the police officers, retired police officers, have the same level of bias or perceived bias in their denials.
Right.
Or, I'll say worse yet, there's no bias and they're getting preferential treatment.
Right.
I think that would, I don't know, at least if they're applying the same level of bias to the retired police officers, at least it's fair.
Well, at least, yeah. It's equal racism.
It's
Okay.
equal racism, exactly. So the records custodian, exactly, it's equal racism. The records custodian wrote back to me and said, you know, this is improper, it's overbroad, this isn't subjected to, you know, Oprah, it's not subjected to a common law claim, so your only recourse is you can sue us for that data. So I'm pleased to announce that John Petralino verse, New Jersey State Police, and State Trooper X, or Trooper X, was filed in state court. And now I'm suing New Jersey over getting these records, and also I'm suing them for subverting my First Amendment rights as a journalist for subverting this data.
All right, so you know, this reminds me though of the conversation that we had yesterday, is because you know you are a journalist, but you're also an activist. How do you walk that line, and what are some of the challenges that both kind of present for the other, for your role in the other?
So that's a great question. And I've actually had editors that I've gone to and said, you know, hey, I'd like to cover this Second Amendment related article in a more mainstream publication. And they've said to me, you're an activist. I can't have you cover this for me. I said, I'm a subject matter expert. No, you're an activist. I said, well, I do serve on a board of a 501c4 that is an advocacy group. Is it challenging? Yes. But at the end of the day, what I have discovered is it's very easy to report on the Second Amendment and firearm-related news. And the reason it's easy is because if you state just the facts and you remove is there going to be a bias? Yes, there's going to be a bias. I'm a gun guy. But there's no different than there being a bias when you have an anti-gunner covering the same topic. There's going to be a spin. A little bit of a spin, probably. Now, if you're a true ethical journalist, you can sit there, you can ask the questions, and you can write the story. And that's really what I'm trying to do. Now, as an advocate, activist that's also a journalist, where do I run into problems? That's a great question. For example, somebody say, hey, can you endorse me for XYZ thing? I said, well, no, I can't endorse you for that, because if I'm going to cover that topic, then I'm going to be precluded from being able to cover that. So there are definitely some ethical considerations that you have to take, but Craig, that's on me.
Yeah.
You're an ethical guy, I'm an ethical guy, and if I'm going to be doing hard news reporting on this stuff that's not labeled opinion, you know, you have to do it right. You got to play by the rules. And if I'm covering something that's going on in the state, I'll go to the Attorney General and ask for comment. It's not my fault or my problem that they say we declined to comment.
Right.
But if they want to give me time, I will give them the room on my page.
Right.
That's, you know, no different. Verbatim. I'm not going to, and you know, if it's something that's, you know, whatever the topic is, I'll give it to you. You know, I'm not going to take that away. So the best way, and this is what I've figured out, as an advocate, activist, journalist, the best way that I can serve the Second Amendment is by being an unbiased reporter to the best of my ability, practice ethical journalism practices,
Right.
and get the information out that way. Because, the stuff that we do, like you do phenomenal work. The people here on the Voices of the Second Amendment Row, everybody here does phenomenal work. But how much editorial is out there that is straight up hard news reporting where people are trying their best to remove the bias?
Well, not much. And one of the things I do is I work for a couple of journalism entities. I work for, one of my clients is California Black Media, another one's the Sacramento Observer, which is a predominantly black newspaper in Sacramento. And I am constantly dealing with their editorial staff, trying to get them to make sure that, look, there's a different perspective. I'll give you a great example. We had a guy who wrote a thing on gun buybacks. And it was the normal, this is the gun. And so I said, do me a favor, go back and ask them. First of all, ask them, is this a, no questions asked gun buyback? And if they say yes, say, well then, and ask them specifically, do you do any sort of a background, do you do any sort of a check on the guns, or do you simply destroy them? And then if they tell you they simply destroy them, then ask them, isn't this a really effective way to get rid of a gun that's been used in the commission of a crime?
Right.
And sure enough, when they asked, and it was funny because he said no one had ever asked him this before, but he said no, they actually do run a check on the serial numbers and the ballistics, not necessarily the ballistics, but the serial numbers for all of the guns and all the guns that they take in, and if any are tied to a crime, well then they investigate. So that was something that appeared in his article that it never appeared in any one of these gun buyback program stories I had ever seen. But I'm constantly trying to push them to ask these questions that they just don't. Some of it is they don't even think to ask it, right? Some of it is they don't care to ask it, and the other problem is in many cases they don't know anybody. They don't know anybody who's center right, let alone somebody who's in the gun rights community. They may know someone who owns guns or a gun or two, but they don't know anybody. So it's just getting them to just get out of your own way. Spend some time as a journalist, meet people on the other side. Even if you feel a certain way, meet people on both sides so that you can go and do. A big part of what I did with FPC, I would make sure, and I would talk to journalists and say, look, if you just ever need background, I can go on camera. I know you want to diversify and have different people on camera, that's fine. But if you ever just need background on a subject so that you know and understand what you're reporting on, call me and I'll provide you background. But folks on the left don't do that. I think to a certain degree we have an advantage as pro-gun activists because we know a lot more and have a lot more of a knowledge base in this arena than anyone on the left.
Right. Yeah. And we become, when I say subject matter experts,
yes,
that's really what happens. Because now I'm becoming an expert in litigation. Now I'm becoming an expert in legislation. Now I'm becoming an expert in grassroots activism. Now I'm becoming an expert in lobbying because all of these things are intertwined together. Right. And as both a journalist and an advocate activist, you need to learn all this stuff.
I'll tell you, it's the funniest thing. Whenever you would see a local journalist who would be doing reporting on gun stuff, and the issue of levels of scrutiny came up, they had no idea. Now, what does levels of scrutiny have to do with guns? Well, only someone who's a gun policy nut would know that and understand that.
Exactly. And it's funny that you bring up, so what were the two publications you were talking about? The ones that you...
Sacramento Observer and California Black Media, which distributes news to something like 27 black newspapers in California.
So let me ask you a question. If the Black Media organization, should black people be reporting on this because they're so close to the topic?
Well, exactly. There you go.
So there's my answer to that.
Right.
So, and that's when that one journalist said that to me, and he also was running a non-profit newsroom, which is a little bit different than your standard newsroom. Mm-hmm. So for him to want to separate somebody who's definitely an advocate, activist, from editorial, I get that. Mm-hmm. But does that mean a gay person can't report on gay issues? Does that mean a Latino can't report on immigration? Does that mean a black person can't report on black topics?
Right.
No, because if you're a good journalist and you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're going to remove the bias to the best of your ability.
And in the end, because they're the ones that determine whether or not they're going to run with the story or not, at the very least, give you the opportunity to prove that you're a subject matter expert and that you can be non-biased in how you report on it. And now, because see, when they're non-biased, here's what they do. And I know you've had this happen. They write a whole anti-gun article, and there near the end, you get one, maybe a paragraph. Craig DeLuz from the Firearms Policy Coalition says, boom.
Right.
And that they consider that getting both sides.
It's not balanced at all.
Not balanced at all. And people would wonder why I even bothered. And I said, because there's someone who is pro-gun or someone who's open is going to read the article. They're going to see that quote, and
it's going to resonate with them.
I'm quotable.
You are very quotable.
It's going to resonate with them. They're going to look up the organization. They're going to look me up. And next thing you know, they're going to be now part of our audience. So now we can get them the unfiltered message.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's definitely a minuet. It's a very delicate dance that we have to do, but I'm happy to do it. And like I said, if this is what it takes to serve, and if that means there's stories that I have to walk away from, if that means having to tell friends, no, I can't cover that for XYZ reasons because I'm covering this, that, and the other thing, or if I can't give you an endorsement you're looking for, or fill in the blank, these are now considerations that I take very seriously in my work and my, consideration of what I do. And that's kind of where I'm at.
All right, let me ask you this. I mean, this is kind of along the two-way news now. There are people who follow like the legacy media. There are people who follow conservative media, and then there are people who follow two-way media or two-way news. That's a lot. Why should people follow Second Amendment news and instead of just either conservative media or mainstream media?
Oh, no, absolutely. And even if you're getting opinion pieces, if you're getting hard news reporting, and there's like a lot of great writers out there in the two-way media sphere. I'm not the only guy doing this. There's a lot of people. I am one small little blip on the radar. The reason why you do want to go to sites like AmmoLand, like News 2A, like The Truth About Guns, NRA Media stuff, or NRA, whatever they're calling them, NRA Media now.
Bearing Arms.
Bearing Arms.
Oh, and 2A News.
2A News, yeah. All of these podcasts, written editorial. The reason why you want to go to there, because you are going to subject matter experts that are going to be able to teach you about the topic. And then if you're like a policy nerd like me and Craig, you're subscribed to all of it and you're getting nonstop in your feed, and your inbox is filled with all this stuff. And sure, we might cherry pick what we're going to look at. You don't have to subscribe to it all, but find somebody or some outlet that resonates with you and just start reading some of it. And I don't care if it's AmmoLand or Bearing Arms, or if it's your podcast. I don't care if it's Meet the Pressers, Gun Freedom Radio, Riding Shotgun with Charlie. There's something out there for everyone, and there's a ton of stuff to learn.
Yes. Well, and that, you just hit the nail on the head. The reality is there's so much to learn, and these are folks who are steeped in particular in that. And the mainstream media, sadly, and when I say mainstream, I'm also talking about a lot of conservative media, don't really understand the issue. Because in many cases, it's not just an issue of knowing the law, and it's a very detailed area of the law, but it's also knowing the technology and how the technology, the industry, the culture, and the law all interconnect. And so if you really want to know and understand that, that's how you don't get people misrepresenting positions, right?
And that's what we're talking about: legislation, litigation, lobbying, activism. It's all together, and you have to. If you really want to get into it, you can have your niche in your areas. Go watch Mark Smith. Go watch Washington Gun Law if you are into the law end of things. But there's plenty of content out there for everyone.
How do folks follow you and read your stuff?
Perfect. So the clearinghouse for everything John Petralino is thepenpatriot.com. From there, there's links to my socials. There's links to how to contact me. If you want to find me on Facebook, which is kind of where I am, I know, okay, Boomer, it's Facebook, but The Pen Patriot's over there on Facebook. You can email me, john@thepenpatriot.com. I like news tips. I like love mail. I like hate mail. I like it all. So I want to hear from you. thepenpatriot.com, and you can also check out the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms at ccrkba.org. We got a lot of exciting things going on. We got some conferences coming up. We got GRPC in September. I hope you're going to be out there. We're going to be in Dallas. We've got AmCon. We've got GRPC September 25, 26, 27, and that's in September, like I said, in Dallas. And you can get more information about that at saf.org/GRPC or am-con.org.
There you go. Well, sir, thank you so very much. Appreciate all that you do. You do a lot. And what I also appreciate is the primary way in which you support the Second Amendment is by reporting the truth and getting stories out there that other folks wouldn't cover.
I try to do my best by burning the leather.
Very much. Thank you so very much. All right. All right, folks, that's it for this episode of 2A News with Craig DeLuz. We're going to be back. I'm going to be here all weekend interviewing friends, interviewing colleagues, interviewing just interesting people, talking about the Second Amendment, talking about guns, talking about conservative politics, talking about whatever. But we're going to have a good time. You folks take care, and I will see you, well, hopefully a little bit later today.